We're also watching oil prices today following the news that Iran shot down an American military drone. And you can see there crude trading higher, more than 5% the gain right now in the price there on WTI crude. President Trump speaking out on the latest provocation earlier today. Take a listen.
Iran made a big mistake. This drone was in international waters. Clearly, we have it all documented. It's documented scientifically, not just words. And they made a very bad mistake. Okay?
How will you respond?
You'll find out.
Are you willing to go to war with Iran?
You'll find out. You'll find out. I think probably Iran made a mistake. I would imagine it was a general or somebody that made a mistake in shooting that drone down.
There you go. You hear the president speaking there. He says Iran says the drone entered the country's territory, but U.S. officials say the device was flying in international airspace over the Strait of Hormuz. What are your guys' reaction to the latest developments here?
I mean, I think that's terrifying. I'm glad to see, however, the president softening the blow of what he said a little bit by saying, "Oh, I think this was more of an individual mistake. You know, maybe a general went and shot this drone down instead of blasting out Iran as a whole." Because that's very problematic. We're going to reach a tipping point at some point where one of these governments is going to have to say someone has actually crossed the line. And as the president of the United States, if he feels that Iran has actually crossed that line, well, now we're actually getting to the point where we start thinking that the United States might actually commit an airstrike against Iran. And that is not good news for everyone. It really, I mean, it's not good news for anyone, excuse me. Like, we all lose in that situation. Iran saying that they are ready for war with the United States. I mean, no, they're not. That's a terrible political calculation for them. But for us as well, even though we are more than capable enough of going to war with Iran, it's not something that the United States would want.
Well, it's not something that the markets want either, because when we heard these headlines crossing Carleton, you could see the market reaction across the board, stocks coming down.
Yeah, I mean, we had this tremendous open, on the Fed exuberance yesterday, and then, we're kind of down by, half of those gains so far at my last check. But to your point, I think that dialing down of some of that scary rhetoric, the quotes that, were released from President Trump. Additionally, with Iran saying we're ready to fight, but, they even dialed that back a little bit too, saying, we don't want that to happen, but it's going to make markets a little bit nervous. I mean, we already know that markets don't like uncertainty, whether it's on trade, whether it's on Fed policy. I mean, and now you have a real international dispute possibly in the works. The markets aren't going to like that either.
And it shouldn't, because any conflict between the United States and Iran is not just going to be between the United States and Iran. It's going to involve Saudi Arabia. It's going to involve Qatar. It's going to involve oil. It involves nuclear energy. There are way too many industries and countries that are impacted by a conflict between the United States and Iran. And it's the reason why for years you've seen essentially president after president try to avoid that very thing. I think it's a little bit terrifying that the president would say, well, you'll see what happens. I want you to tell me. I need you to tell us what's going to happen. I don't want to wait and see. But it is encouraging that both governments are starting to dial that rhetoric back a bit, because I think that both countries understand that conflict between the two of them, everyone loses.
There's much more at play.
There's much more at stake. Everyone loses if we have any kind of war at all.
Yeah, the exact quote when asked, President Trump saying to the question if the U.S. will strike Iran, he says, "You'll soon find out."
Yeah, I don't want to soon find out.
Yeah, what does that mean?
What does that mean? Exactly. No one knows what that means. We don't want to soon find out.
Not exactly calming rhetoric.